Hi, I'm Adrian Bowles, founder of SIG 411. We're a research and advisory firm focused on evaluating emerging technologies that have an impact on the sustainability of businesses and society. Based in Westport, Connecticut, and I'd like to welcome you to the video today that looks at the relationship between enterprise risk management and sustainability. This is an area I've been working on for years. What we'll give you today is the summary of findings and recommendations of some of our recent work. Back in 2003, I founded the IT Compliance Institute, and from 2005 to 2008, I ran the GRC programs for the Object Management Group. Some of the lessons learned there have carried forward, and over the last few years we've done extensive research with end users and vendors, trying to tame the complexity in large systems by looking at enterprise risk management. What we do today is give you some of those findings and recommendations, and also some open questions. And I'd really like to encourage you to participate in the dialogue by contacting me afterwards. You can reach me by email or on Twitter. And let's consider this the beginning of a dialogue. Sustainability has become a catch-all phrase, and the basis for an industry populated with well-meaning but misguided advisors and activists. The term itself is innocuous enough, but it's been weakened in usage to the point that it means something to everyone, just not the same something. Nevertheless, it is the term of art, so we need to focus our attention on clarifying our meaning when we use it and making sure that our actions are consistent with our definitions and goals. As Bill Ford of the Ford Motor Company observed, the broad view of sustainability for a business should be about economic sustainability. We share that view, and it's reflected throughout the session. From a pragmatic view, as an advisor to businesses, advice that focuses on going green while putting your company in the red is not sustainable. With those caveats, we'll look next at the conventional usage of the term sustainability and see how it impacts IT and audit professionals. A recent McKinsey survey of top business executives gives us insights into current management thinking. Their top reasons for addressing sustainability issues? At number 1, maintaining or improving corporate reputation. Not really a surprise. Number 2, alignment with business goals. Tied for number 3, lowering costs and efficiency, and meeting consumer expectations, again like corporate reputation and external influence. Tied at 5, new growth opportunities and strengthening competitive position. Only 14% cite regulatory risk as the top issue. It was interesting to me to see that 59% of executives see biodiversity, the diversity of ecosystems and species, as more of an opportunity than a risk, but only 9% see it as the most important issue. 43% think climate change or energy efficiency is number 1. This is an area worth watching for risk managers. The ISACA paper I mentioned identifies 4 forces that drive IT action, and these are consistent with the McKinsey findings. What's important here is to ensure that when we're looking for risks to control and manage, we consider each of these categories consistently. As there are overlaps, it would be a mistake to organize your efforts along these lines. For example, some environmental concerns, such as the use of specific chemicals, are or will become regulatory concerns. They'll also be seen as social issues if it comes out that they're being used in a way that harms the workforce, and that will impact your cost of doing business. We need to focus on the interdependencies, not the individual forces. At the highest level, there are 2 major concerns when we talk about sustainability in terms of an organization, whether it's a commercial enterprise or a society. One is, of course, the environmental impact or concerns with ecology. The complementary dimension is a concern with economic sustainability. The common thread is stewardship, or a responsibility to preserve options for the future by responsible action today. Sustainability may be measured in business quarters, but it's focused on a much longer horizon. The triple bottom line of people, planet, and profits is emerging as the critical or defining characteristic of a true sustainability program. So where does this fit with the emerging discipline of enterprise risk management? In this diagram, we see that energy and resources are used and carbon is produced throughout the supply chain. We use the term of art carbon footprint to refer to the management of these resources, while noting that it's a proxy for a lot of variables. There are several stakeholders with an interest in reducing the enterprise carbon footprint, and interactions with each of them have risks that must be accounted for in enterprise risk management activities. For example, regulators and NGOs have long exerted influence over carbon management decisions, but increasingly suppliers, competitors, and customers are making demands that present risks and opportunities. The opportunities presented by supply chain optimization are explored in detail in research by my colleague Jeff Ashcroft at Constellation. I'll just note a few here that reduce environmental risks while improving the bottom line. Reducing waste output, resource consumption, reduced energy and resource consumption throughout the product life cycle, including electricity and water, reduced post-production landfill waste. Building customer loyalty and brand equity are the positive outcomes, and failure to do so must be accounted for in enterprise risk management scenarios. Whether driven by regulations, NGOs, customers, etc., auditors will increasingly be compelled by law, customer, competitive pressure to monitor sustainability metrics and manage to a set of appropriate controls. These will likely vary by geography and politics for several years, but we'll see a convergence that, like a rising tide, lifts the standard of practice for everyone. For now, competitive pressure should suffice. Here we see a simple reminder of the way risk management and controls are currently applied within the COBIT world for regulations such as HIPAA and SOX. Mapping regulatory requirements to framework objectives and internal controls is our foundation, and it's a well-understood field with lots of tools to support it today. The process has already begun, and in the next few years, control objectives will include more environmental and social factors in response to government and governance pressures driven by management concerns with customers, NGOs, etc. This is where enterprise risk management best practices will change most noticeably in the next few years. The natural question at this point is, where should I focus to get started? In general, focus attention and investment as much as possible on things that differentiate your enterprise from your competitors, but don't overlook the risks of infrastructure failure that could cripple your business. For anything above the line in this diagram, more investment should yield more returns, while below the line issues are focused on savings and therefore suggest collaboration with suppliers and even competitors. In practical terms, risk management for sustainability must be part of everyone's job. In particular, though, for enterprise risk management professionals, auditors, and IT execs, it means sustainability controls should be in place throughout the lifecycle and supply chain, with an emphasis on infrastructure. Now that we have a handle on the context and controls, let's turn to a critical issue that's all too frequently overlooked. Market forces regulate businesses faster than governments. That simply can't be overemphasized. Most professionals that I talk to focus on the R in GRC, but most businesses are or will be governed more harshly by the consumers and participants in their supply chain than they'll ever be regulated by governments. More businesses fail due to problems with their customers, competitors, and supply chain than fail due to regulatory issues. And no business has ever succeeded simply by being the best at pleasing the government. We'll now look at two forces that are changing business behavior globally, like regulations, and note that NGOs, customers, and emerging organizations like Good Guide and People for Earth exert similar pressures, which are increasing every day. First, let's look at the Equator Principles. Launched in 2003 and revised in 2006 by a consortium of profit-seeking banks, not governments. The Equator Principles are a credit risk management framework for determining, assessing, and managing environmental and social risk in project finance transactions. They apply globally to all sectors and now apply to project financing with capital costs over $10 million US, which is much stricter than the original threshold they had of $50 million US. The principles also apply to advisory activities and upgrades or expansion of existing projects where the additional environmental or social impact are considered to be significant. Each of the members is now required to report on the progress and performance of the Equator Principles implementation on an annual basis. So this is a set of principles that guide the way banks, and over 70 of them worldwide, decide on whether or not they will finance projects. And it all has to do with the risk that is associated with environmental and social impact. Any relevant financial commitment made by a member bank must meet the first 9 of these principles. Remember, this is a voluntary commitment to transparency and to tying capital investment to risk management criteria focused on environmental impact. I submit, based on my experience with financial institutions as a consultant and as a consumer, that this commitment is based on a detailed analysis of the relationship between environmental impact and economic return. It's pure capitalism. If what's good for the environment is good for Citibank and Bank of America, it's probably good for you too. You can find the details of each principle on the Equator Principles website. They provide a good guide to risk management controls for businesses outside the world of project finance too, so it's recommended reading for anyone interested in enterprise risk management and sustainability. Our second non-government example is the ubiquitous Walmart. Walmart has developed its own sustainability index, which is driving the behavior of its suppliers. Basically, driven by customer concern, they started with a supplier sustainability assessment. They provided over 100,000 global suppliers with a survey to evaluate their own sustainability along the 4 dimensions shown in this diagram. Now they're working with NGOs, universities, and other organizations to drive research into life cycle analysis, or LCA. LCA will provide an understanding of the full environmental impact of products they sell, from raw material selection and procurement to end-of-life disposal. LCA will be used as the basis for decisions on inclusion and shelf space. Ultimately, this research will result in a database made available to the public that provides information on product life cycles. We know of one firm, a household name in appliances, that showed no interest in understanding their carbon footprint or doing LCA until Walmart indicated that they could lose prime store exposure unless they complied with these requests. In effect, Walmart did what no government had done for or to this manufacturer. They now measure everything and are becoming more efficient and profitable in the process. Finally, Walmart is committed to making this information available to the consumer with tools to enable informed decisions based on environmental impact. As a global retailing force with a history of attacks based on corporate social responsibility issues, it might be easy to dismiss these efforts as greenwashing, but that'd be wrong and short-sighted. Walmart is convinced that by doing good they will do well, and that while initial changes for their suppliers may be costly or painful, the result will be a better business ecosystem with positive ecological results as ancillary benefits. Few firms have the resources of a Walmart to study these impacts, but all will be advised to study their conclusions and their results. I'll close with 4 action items, which are appropriate regardless of your industry or current state of your sustainability efforts. First, make your supply chain the focal point of your sustainability and risk management efforts. All the key risks you have to manage will be found there if you map your complete ecosystem. Second, do a life cycle analysis on your products. Know before you're asked what goes into them and what comes out of your processes, from wastewater to usable byproducts. Every interaction probably has a risk that should have a control point. Third, start to look for tools that can help. We recently completed a study of 20 energy and carbon management tools, which is a good start. Look at these and also at risk management tools, but don't stop there. Consider how you might use a common set of analytics for risk and sustainability, and see what firms like SAP, SAS, Oracle, and IBM are doing with both risk and sustainability, and how you might bring them together in your organization. Don't rule out point solutions, but prepare for integration in the future, so look for emerging standards. Of course, ISACA is a good place to start for standards, so I'd encourage you to follow them and get involved. And finally, monitor the emerging regulations that may soon govern your behavior, but don't stop there either. Look at the Walmarts of the world, driven by their ecosystems, and see how you can benefit from their research and practices. I'll be writing more about sustainability and risk management for SIG 411 and in my regular contributions to searchcompliance.com. I invite your feedback, and thank you again for participating in today's video.